Right. It seems a rather alarming number of you are confused about a biological principle that is frankly elementary. The entire point of excretion is to, well, excrete, to get waste out of your system. Honestly, the fact that I even have to explain this is a bit worrying. But not to worry. I'm here to shine the brilliant light of reason on this. Let's call it profoundly unhygienic confusion. Let's begin.
So, here's the itinerary for our little journey into complete nonsense. We'll start with the internet's latest connoisseur of bodily fluids, then take a quick trip through some of history's most questionable medical habits, debunk a frankly lethal survival myth you've all seen on TV, look at the modern wellness angle, and finally apply a desperately needed dose of actual science. Do try to keep up.
And where else would we begin these days but with someone on the internet doing something deeply, deeply questionable for attention? A man who looked at a toilet and saw not a waste disposal unit, but a research lab. And a tasting station. You almost have to admire the commitment, I suppose, if not the basic premise or, the sanity.
My word, the man has created a wine tasting guide for his own bodily waste. Mouthfeel. Just let that phrase sit with you for a moment. He claims this research lets him predict illness 3 days before it happens. His wife, bless her, just says he takes a long time in the bathroom. I think it's safe to say that this blissful ignorance is the very glue holding their marriage together.
Now, the internet for once reacted with the correct amount of horror and morbid curiosity. But believe it or not, this fellow wasn't the first. Oh no, this peculiar hobby of sampling one's own water goes back centuries, to a time when your doctor's most trusted diagnostic tool was his own tongue.
So let's all just rewind, way back, before germ theory, before sterile equipment, before, actual science. Back to a time when the height of medical technology was a glass flask of pee and a doctor with a very adventurous palate. It was a golden age, you could say, but probably for all the wrong reasons.
For hundreds of years, uroscopy, just looking at urine, was the absolute peak of medical diagnosis. It started out sensibly enough with Hippocrates just checking the color. But by medieval times, it had become this whole pseudoscience, with these elaborate color wheels that claimed to diagnose everything from lovesickness to the plague. The image of a doctor holding a flask of pee up to the light became the standard, kind of like the stethoscope is today, which is, if you ask me, quite the unfortunate rebrand.
And yet, here's the thing. They did get one thing surprisingly right. If a patient's urine tasted sweet, they correctly diagnosed what we now know as diabetes mellitus. You see, mellitus is just Latin for honey sweet. The body couldn't process sugar, so it was just dumping it straight out. So yes, a tiny win for a practice that mostly involved telling a knight his future looked a bit cloudy before charging him a fortune.
And of course, they didn't just stop in medicine, they claimed they could tell your fortune with it. They were called piss prophets. I suppose that's one way to make sure people pay attention. It's just amazing, isn't it? This weird human desire to find deep meaning in our own waste products seems to pop up throughout history. Truly baffling.
All right, now for the big one, the one you all think you know. That classic movie scene, our hero lost in the desert, bravely drinking his own urine to survive. You see it on reality TV all the time. So surely, this is the one time it's a good idea? Wrong. Spectacularly, fatally, and scientifically wrong. Okay, let's forget the movies and look at a real harrowing story. In 1815, a crew of American sailors were shipwrecked off the coast of Africa. They were captured, enslaved, and marched through the Sahara Desert. Utterly dehydrated and starving, they turned to the one thing they thought could save them, drinking their own urine. It didn't.
And here is the fatal flaw in that whole plan. It's simple, brutal chemistry. Your urine has a salt concentration of about 2%. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but to process that extra salt, your kidneys have to pull water that's already in your body. So with every single sip, you are actively making yourself more dehydrated.
Let me put this in terms even a survival show host can understand. Drinking your urine when you're dehydrated is like trying to put out a fire with petrol. It just makes everything worse, much faster. It leads to kidney failure and death. For the poor sailors of the Commerce, it didn't save them, it just sped up their agonizing end. It is not a survival hack, it's a biological trap.
Which brings us, bafflingly, to today. A time when people, with full access to clean, safe drinking water, from a tap, are doing this willingly. They call it urotherapy. I call it a cry for help that's been disguised as a wellness trend.
Let me introduce you to Nick and Aubrey. Not only do they drink it, they use it as mouthwash, as eye drops, and they really call it this, pee showers. Nick even claims he snorts it. This is not a natural lifestyle. It's a self-inflicted sanitation crisis, and they're doing it on television. And of course, you can't have a bizarre trend without celebrities getting involved. A UFC fighter drinks it to flush his system. A famous boxer drank it because he thought he was recycling vitamins. Their reasoning is, well, it's impressively incorrect. It's like they all collectively skipped high school biology. Honestly, their logic is so flawed, it's almost a work of art. They think that because urine has trace amounts of vitamins, putting it back in must be good for you. And that brings us finally to the actual science. So please pay attention. This is the really crucial bit. Inside your body, you have a pair of magnificent bean-shaped filtration systems. They're called kidneys. And they are smarter than any wellness guru, they work better than any detox tea, and they do it all for free. To think you can improve on their design by drinking their waste product is just supreme biological arrogance. Let's not insult them. Let me just simplify millions of years of evolution for you. First, your blood goes into the kidneys, and they just aggressively filter it, ripping out all the rubbish, toxins, waste products like urea, extra salt. Then, step 2, reabsorption. Your body is smart. It carefully takes back all the good stuff it needs, water, glucose, electrolytes, and what's left over? That's the concentrated junk. That is urine. Just look at this list. Your body makes a very clear choice. It wants to keep the stuff on the left and get rid of the stuff on the right. So drinking your urine is like taking out your household garbage and then bringing it right back inside to make a sandwich. It's not recycling, it's re-toxifying. You're just forcing your kidneys to filter the exact same trash a second time, which puts them under incredible, useless strain.
You know, there's an old medical school story about observation. A professor tells his students to do exactly as he does. He dips one finger into a urine sample, then brings a different finger to his mouth to taste it. The students who weren't paying close attention get a nasty surprise. The lesson is about paying attention to detail, but I think there's a simpler one. Just don't get anywhere near this stuff.
So after our little tour through internet fads, dodgy history, and terrible survival advice, let's bring it all together. Let's create one simple, easy-to-remember conclusion. A golden rule, if you will.
Your urine is not a secret health drink. It is not a survival hack. It is the liquid waste product from your body's incredibly efficient filtration system. The entire point of its existence is for it to leave your body and never, ever, under any circumstances, come back in.
And this, right here, illustrates the only sensible thing to do with it. Flush it. Let your body do its job. Trust your kidneys. They know what they're doing, and unlike that influencer on social media, they actually have your best interests at heart. They don't need your help. They just need you to drink actual water.
It's something to think about, isn't it? Maybe it's the appeal of a secret that they don't want you to know. But some secrets aren't knowledge. They're just really bad ideas. And this is one of the worst. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to have a glass of clean, non-recycled water. You're welcome.